All right. So we're just going to cover some quick Zoom basics for you. This training will be recorded. Who can see me? Oh, well, it looks like attendees are being allowed to share videos during this training. So if you do not want your camera on, please click on the stop video button in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And attendees were muted upon joining, and we ask that you remain muted during the presentation. You can mute also in the left-hand corner of your screen. How do you ask a question during this training? You can ask a question during the presentation using the chat button located on the bottom bar, and questions will be read and answered after each presentation. If you have a particular question that you need to send directly to somebody, you can actually change the drop down from everyone to a particular individual if you need to. And if you need to update your title, you should see in the top right-hand corner of your video box an ellipsis or 3 dots. If you click on that, you should see an option to rename yourself if you want to put your title. So here are some of the topics we're going to cover in this presentation. This is your welcome and instructions. After me, you'll hear from both OTA and TURA about their services they're offering. You'll hear about the DEP changes in the reporting for reporting year 2022. Heather Tenney from TURA will talk about PFAS. I will talk about enforcement. You'll hear updates from the data release from Lynn Kane. And Mr. Walter Hope will cover the EDP TURA reporting for the year. Anyone in this will be offered 6 CEUs after completion of the training. And are there any questions before we get started? Okay, if not, Tiffany and Heather, feel free to take it away.
Go ahead, Tiffany, you can start.
Hi, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So good morning. My name is Tiffany Skogstrom, and I'm the director of the Massachusetts Office of Technical Assistance, otherwise known as OTA, and I'll be talking about OTA services and a little bit of the topics that we're covering today. So we'll begin with the TURA and OTA basics and the general program information, which will describe each of the roles that the agencies play. So the Toxic Use Reduction Act was created in 1989. And this covers Massachusetts manufacturers under certain standard industrial classification codes that have more than 10 employees and manufacture or process greater than or equal to 25,000 pounds or otherwise use greater than equal to 10,000 pounds of TURA listed substances. And so that covers a little bit more than 400 facilities right now in Massachusetts. And if you meet those criteria, what that requires is that you report to the state, pay a fee, and every 2 years do a toxic use reduction plan. TURA does not prohibit companies from using listed chemicals. It just requires reporting for them. So the TURA program is implemented by 3 different agencies. We have the Mass Department of Environmental Protection, who's running this training today, and they're the regulatory arm. So they do the inspections, collect the fees. And then there's the Toxic Use Reduction Institute at UMass Lowell, and they provide research and grants. And then there's OTA, which is the Confidential Technical Assistance arm. So we go into the facilities and offer free and confidential technical assistance on pollution prevention and toxic use reduction. So TURA is a state law, not a federal law, and OTA, DEP, and TURA are not part of EPA. We're Massachusetts agencies. So OTA is a non-regulatory agency, and we provide free and confidential technical assistance and compliance assistance to Massachusetts businesses that use toxic substances. So we go in there into the facility and give concrete recommendations for toxic use reduction and resource conservation. We've conducted over 3,500 site visits at 1,500 facilities and reduced millions of pounds of toxic chemicals and millions of dollars in operating costs. So OTA can assist facilities with toxic use reduction, environmental compliance, energy efficiency, resource conservation, and we offer both on-site and remote assistance through Teams or phone calls or email. And after a site visit, OTA delivers a report tailored to the priorities and recommendations that the company wants. So OTA is staffed by chemists, engineers, and public health professionals who have hands-on manufacturing experience and knowledge. And so that means that they have an understanding of health and safety and the bottom line of the company, the regulatory requirements, and how to implement change in the facility. Frequently asked questions about OTA is our work truly confidential? And yes, we will never disclose anything about your company, not even that we've been there or that we've worked with you, unless we have your written permission to do so. If you're out of compliance with laws or regulations, we can help you get into compliance, but we can't and won't report any violations. So that's under the statute that we are confidential. What kind of work has OTA done before? So some companies have actually given us permission to talk about how we've helped them. And so we have a case study library available on our website that you can see outlining some of the success stories between OTA and some of the businesses that we've worked with. So a lot of what we're doing right now is trying to help companies identify and track down their PFAS use. So we're helping companies look for common uses of PFAS. So PFAS is per and polyfluoroalkyl alkyl substances, which a lot of you are here to learn about today, reporting. And common uses include textile coatings for water repellency, surfactants, degreasing, metal finishing as fume suppressants and polymers and resins, and then AFFF, which is firefighting foam. You can check your safety data sheets for products that are likely to contain PFAS, and also take note of anything listed as confidential business information or proprietary items of concern. So you can contact your supplier or OTA for help if you have those things. You can check your available CAS numbers. So there's a TURA guidance that helps you identify reportable CAS numbers, and paper and metal finishing industries can contact OTA to take a survey. And if there are no CAS numbers available for fluorinated compounds, you can contact your supplier or OTA for technical assistance. And you can also send a notification to your supplier asking them, notification if you are receiving anything that contains PFAS. So we created a template letter that is downloadable as a Word document in our website. And you should involve your purchasing department in this effort because they know what's coming in the door, and keep records to demonstrate a good faith effort. And then by doing so, you can help us contribute to a developing product list. So we'd love to develop a list of products confirmed to have PFAS. So if companies have found those, we're encouraging them to please share that information with OTA and TURA so that we can just help others reduce their use of PFAS. So we have some resources for companies on PFAS identification. So we've created some assessments to identify PFAS resources. Most recently, we've been working with the metal finishing industry on developing a survey, but we also have one ready to go for the paper industry, and then to be done later are coatings and textiles. But by walking through a survey, OTA technical staff can help you flag likely sources of PFAS, and then companies can also share their CAS numbers with OTA so that we can help you identify your PFAS. And then we can also pursue research on products of concern to help you identify if they contain PFAS. And then companies can opt to share product information with OTA so that we can populate our list of PFAS products and help others. So you'll hear a little bit more about this, but we've created this reporting and tracking table. So certain PFAS not otherwise listed starts reporting to DEP on July 1st, 2023 as a category. And then the toxic release inventory, or TRI PFAS, are at 100-pound thresholds. And so we have several of those that are individually listed and more that are anticipated to come. There are 9 TRI PFAS that have been added, which will eventually, after the public process, will be added to the TURA list. So we are anticipating the tracking for those to begin on January 1st, 2024, to be reported to DEP by July 1st, 2025. In addition to the 9 PFAS, EPA has also added 12 individual chemicals, which will also are not part of this table, but will be the same tracking and reporting dates as the upcoming 9 TRI PFAS. So with that, I want to thank you for your time and turn it over to Heather Tenney. You can contact OTA for free and confidential technical assistance at any time. Please follow our newsletter, use our LinkedIn, and thanks, and I'll turn it over to Heather now.
Thanks, Tiffany. Let me just share my screen here. All right, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Heather Tenney, and I work at the Toxics Use Reduction Institute. And I have just a couple slides here today about TURA's resources. And then later on in the session, I will be doing a longer presentation on this first reporting year for PFAS. So TURA does a lot of different things. One of the things that we do are analyze the policy implications of chemical use in Massachusetts. We run the TURA Science Advisory Board, which makes recommendations on chemicals for listing or delisting or higher or lower hazard status under TURA. And TURA then develops a policy analysis that includes that scientific information as well as known use information, available alternatives, other regulations that apply, and implications to the TURA program before presenting that to the advisory committee and administrative council. TURA also trains professionals in toxics use reduction planning to help facilities reduce their use of toxics. Probably many people in the room today have taken the TURP course or attended a TURP conference. TURA provides technical and financial support to help companies achieve TUR success through our industry grants program. We provide key research to assess the performance of safer industrial parts cleaning alternatives through our surface cleaning lab, and to develop safer alternatives through our academic grants program. And we also work with community groups through our community grants program to reduce toxics at the local level. So through our academic grants program, academic research leads to new solutions when there really aren't alternatives available for a particular application. We always like to have an industry partner for academic research so we can make sure that we can follow an alternative through the implementation process. We have our industry grants program to support process changes in industry. And we do bigger alternatives assessments reports for particular applications to bring in, as well as the hazard information, information on cost and how well something works for particular applications, for instance, for dry cleaning or for halogenated solvent surface cleaning. And finally, TURA has some tools to facilitate discovery and evaluation of options. One of those tools is P2 Oasis, which helps, again, with the surface cleaning. And another one of those tools is the TURA data webpage. So, TURA helps DEP with the annual TURA data release. And we also provide that information on the TURA data website. So you can see an individual facility's use, byproduct and releases. You can see, you can look across for a particular chemical, for a particular community, and map the information. So all that information is on the TURA data site. So our grants program, TURA is currently doing a little bit of change to that program, but the RFPs will be out soon. We are still having the program, so keep on the lookout for that. And that is all I have for these introductory slides, and I will be back later for the PFAS presentation.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Tiffany. Up next is Lynn Kane, and she'll be covering DEP changes in the reporting for this coming year.
Hi, hi, can you see my screen?
We see what looks like notes, Lynn.
Okay, hold on, sorry.
There you go.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, I'm Lynn Kane from MassDEP. I'll be talking about changes to TURA reporting for this reporting year 2022. The changes for TURA reporting year 22 documents, guidance documents include referred to the TURA guide. I will be referring to the TURA guidance documents that we've updated and the new certain PFAS NOL category. Beginning on page 80 of the revised March 2023 TURA reporting instructions appendices, there is specific guidance for reporting PFAS under TURA, which includes the individually listed PFAS chemicals and the certain PFAS not otherwise listed or NOL category. The TURA chemical, oh, sorry. Okay, hold on. Yeah, sorry. Okay, the TURA chemical list, revised April 2023, includes an additional hyphenated CAS number column and an additional sheet, which includes a non-exhaustive list of chemicals included in the PFAS NOL category that are TURA reportable, including the newest 17 TRI PFAS additions. These three updated MassDEP TURA guidance documents can be found on our website on this link. Again, these presentations will be available on our website. The new certain PFAS NOL category is reportable under TURA effective this reporting year, 2022, for reports due July 1st, 2023. Heather Tenney will be discussing how the new PFAS NOL category is defined in the next presentation. The new certain PFAS NOL category is reportable at typical TURA reportable thresholds of 25,000 pounds manufactured or processed and 10,000 pounds otherwise used. Guidance on the new certain PFAS NOL category can be found on pages 2 through 9 of the changes for TURA reporting year 2022 document, which includes the list of PFAS chemicals that are reported as part of the TURA certain PFAS NOL category, which is also to be reported as DEP category 1300. Comprehensive guidance on reporting this new category begins on page 80 of the TURA reporting instructions appendices. Also, an additional sheet has been included as I had referred to earlier, to the TURA chemical list, which includes a non-exhaustive list of chemicals included in the PFAS NOL category that are TURA reportable. The first 8 chemicals highlighted in gray toward the end of the certain PFAS NOL category list in the guidance are PFAS chemicals that TRI has listed for reporting years 2021 and 2022. These chemicals have been adopted by the TURA Administrative Council and will be reportable individually under TURA effective next reporting year 2023 for reports due July 1st, 2024. However, this reporting year 2022, these 8 chemicals are to be reported under TURA as part of the certain PFAS NOL category. The last 9 chemicals highlighted in gray toward the end of the certain PFAS NOL category list in the guidance are PFAS chemicals that TRI has listed for reporting year 2023. TURA shall adopt these changes pending an administrative council vote, but until they are adopted by the council, these 9 chemicals are also to be reported under TURA as part of the certain PFAS NOL category. The matrix for reporting specifically listed chemicals versus chemical categories can be found on page 101 of the TURA reporting instructions appendices. Here are lines 7 through 12 of the matrix, which includes the new TURA NOL category column. For example, row 12 of the matrix, the chemical octafluoropropane, CAS number 76197. This chemical is reportable under both the C1, C4 TURA NOL category, which is category 10, TURA category 1047, and the TURA certain PFAS NOL TURA category 1300. If a chemical happens to fall under 2 different TURA NOL categories, you would report both chemical categories and pay 1 fee. Please feel free to contact me at my email address or state phone number if you have any questions or would like to discuss any concerns that you have regarding these. I know that there may be a lot of questions involved in the new reporting in this new chemical category. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm just going to check the chat and see if we have any questions. I don't see anything yet. I do want to note, if you are reporting one chemical in 2 categories, you want to make sure you email the TURA program to ensure that we, and do not pay your bill electronically when you file. That way we make sure that we manually adjust your bill so that you don't get 2 fees. I'm correct in that, right, Walter?
Okay, I do see a couple questions, Rebecca. So regarding Sandra's question, it would be helpful to have one single guidance document for PFAS. I understand what you're saying, Sandra. However, yeah, so again, the comprehensive guidance is in the TURA reporting instructions appendices. However, we also included it in the TURA changes document because it's a new category. But I understand what you're saying. Okay, and someone, who else? Somebody else had a question.
Jim Kane has a question that says TRI threshold versus TURA NOL threshold.
I'll be covering that, Jim. Thanks.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Heather.
Yeah.
Sandra has a comment saying the 2 categories Suppose it in the rules now, but a single
Yeah.
PFA category would also be helpful. And too many changes in flux, how can one follow? Thank you.
Thank you.
Comment.
Rebecca, was that it?
Yes, that's it.
That last comment is a good segue to my presentation, which is next, right?
Yeah.
And there are really a lot of changes, and we do recognize that it's really challenging to follow. So we've done our best to put together guidance that will help you with that. And please do remember that program staff is here to help you navigate all this. We do recognize that there's a lot of changes, especially with PFAS and things going on through TURA with PFAS, that it does make it hard to navigate. We're here to help you with that. And hopefully the presentation here will help some too. So we put this together for the first reporting year of the PFAS NOL category. So we're going to review the TURA and the TRI PFAS. As Jim noted, there are differences, and as whoever that last comment noted, it is challenging to keep up. We're going to review the guidance document kind of page by page, so you know what's in there and how it can assist you. We're going to talk about what uses we expected in Massachusetts. That doesn't mean that there aren't others, but what we're expecting to see. We're going to talk about DEP expectations for this first reporting year and your best practices navigating this all. So PFAS tracking and reporting under TRI and TURA. So we've got the TURA certain PFAS NOL category, which is only reportable to TURA, and it's first reportable this July 1st in 2023. Those PFAS are reportable as a category, and they have normal TURA thresholds, 25,000 pounds manufactured and processed, 10,000 pounds otherwise used. At the same time, the program was reviewing those PFAS. That was about a 5-year job to do it. TRI was making changes through the National Defense Authorization Act. TRI added 172 PFAS in July. They were first reportable July 1st of 2020. As you all know, TURA shall adopt changes that TRI makes, but we do need to vote and put out regs for that. So typically TURA is following usually a year behind, but not always, not always a year, sometimes more. So the TURA tracking for those started January 1st of 2021, and they were reportable to DEP in 2022. And all the TRI PFAS are reportable individually at 100 pounds. TRI has been continually adding, so they added 4 in 2021, they added 4 in 2022, and they added 9 in 2023. TURA shall adopt those changes, but we do have to vote and put out regs for that, so the TURA reporting for that is delayed. So it is a lot to keep track of, but going through the guidance, you'll see kind of how we tracked that and how you can use the guidance to help you know what's what. I do also recommend, though, just, always checking back before you report to TRI, because they have been really continually adding PFAS. So the TURA certain PFAS NOL category is first reportable for the 2022 reporting year, reports due July 1st, 2023. And it is a category, so they're all reportable together under those normal TURA thresholds. And PFAS that are reportable are PFAS that contain a perfluoroalkyl moiety with 3 or more carbons, as we can see an example of on the right here, and a perfluoroalkyl ether moiety with 2 or more carbons. We can see an example of that on the right, Gen X. And then there's some other specificity here where the example structures are shown, the dash is in a bond to a hydrogen, and the structures can be straight or branched. And finally, not otherwise listed. So that's a lot to keep track of, and we've made tables for that in the guidance. So to develop the guidance, we had to figure out which PFAS were important. And we used lists of PFAS that were known to be in commerce. They primarily came from the TSCA chemical data reporting system. We also heavily used information from OECD, the Organization for Economic and Cooperation Development. And then, you know, if somebody put out a paper that found a PFAS in US water supply, by definition, we know that PFAS was being used in the US. So we added in anything we found coming out at that time. So the bottom line is the lists are not exhaustive. They should be, you know, pretty complete from TSCA, but they are not exhaustive lists. So the first, this is just starting at the beginning of the guidance. The first table that we have in the guidance are PFAS that are individually reportable under TURA at the 100-pound threshold after TURA has adopted the TRI and DAA listings. So, the PFAS that are listed in table 1 are reportable under TURA individually at 100-pound threshold. And these are all organized in ascending order by CAS number. So you may remember that that I just said, you know, that the category can contain chemicals that are not otherwise listed. It turns out that there were some PFAS that were already listed under TURA. The chemicals that happened to meet the definition of PFAS. They weren't, you know, they were chemicals that have been on the list like forever. That's how long we've all been doing this, right? So if you're using one of these chemicals in table 2, you would continue reporting them individually. If you're using one of these chemicals, like you should have already known that you're using them. You should have already been reporting. It's a good time for a double check. But if you are using one of these, then you would continue to report it individually when you're exceeding normal reporting thresholds. So then another thing we noticed was the PFAS NOL category overlapped with the somewhat recently added C1 to C4 halogenated hydrocarbons category. There was some overlap with that. So, the chemicals listed, the PFAS listed in table 3, on the left here, the ones that aren't gray are ones that meet the definition of PFAS, but they don't meet our definition of PFAS. We're just recognizing that they are PFAS, and they meet the definition of the C1 to C4 halogenated hydrocarbons category. So if you're using these chemicals, you know, since 2018 or so, you should have known that they met the halogenated hydrocarbons category. You should already be reporting on them. So there's really no change for that. Again, this is a great time for a double check. The ones that are gray in the bottom right here are ones that meet the definition of both categories. So there's just 5 at the bottom here that meet the definition of both categories. If you're using one of those chemicals, you continue reporting it as the TURA C1 to C4 halogenated hydrocarbons, but you also report it as the PFAS NOL category. And there is only one fee due for that if you have to report it twice as part of each category. And there's special instructions at the end for you if you are only going to be paying, if you use one of those 5 and you're only going to be paying one fee. So table 4 is the big list. These are chemicals that, you know, we've identified that are reportable as part of the certain PFAS NOL category. So this table 4 in the guidance document is pages and pages and pages long. It's ascending by CAS number, and you can check there to see if PFAS that you're using or a chemical that you're using is a PFAS reportable in a certain PFAS NOL category. And the rest of kind of messy stuff is over here in gray again. So as noted, TRI is making additions at the same time that we were making the addition. And there is like a delay between when TRI makes that addition and when we make changes under TURA. So everything in gray here is reportable as part of the certain PFAS NOL category under TURA for this year. But we're noting that the year that it's reportable under TRI, remember the TRI chemicals for TRI are reportable individually at 100 pounds. And then as those chemicals are reportable under as we've adopted the changes of TRI under TURA, they will begin to be reportable under TURA individually at 100 pounds as well, but they aren't yet. So everything in gray is stuff that's a little bit in flux, and there's details here about what year TRI added it. There's details in the text surrounding this about where it is in the process for TURA. So the last couple pages of the guidance just have some example structures to help you out if you're wondering about a certain PFAS, some examples of things that do meet the TURA definition. So we've got ones here on this page in green that do meet the TURA definition. And then on the next page, we have examples of PFAS that do not meet the TURA definition. So that's really messy, and it's also kind of the easy part, unfortunately. So the hard part is, what do we do if a CAS number is not provided? So we always recommend starting with your SDSs, and we have some example of those that we're going to go through, particularly as well as checking your SDSs, and what chemicals are listed earlier in the SDS. You can look for breakdown products that are fluorinated that would indicate that maybe there's PFAS in there, even if they haven't listed it in an earlier part of the PFAS. Sometimes even the titles of the SDS can be helpful. Look for keywords such as fluor, PF, something, fluorinated. So just search through for key, keys that there might be something fluorinated in there. Sometimes the technical data sheets can also give you information that is not on the SDS, so that is a good place to check as well. In some instances, you're going to have to contact the supplier, so we're going to talk about doing that in a minute. And you can also always contact OTA and TURA to help you kind of work through it, because it is a challenge. So OTA created a template supplier notification letter. So you can kind of plug and chug with this, send this out to your suppliers, make sure you keep documentation that you did it, follow up with your suppliers and keep documentation of that. This provides the category definition, and hopefully suppliers are responding and letting you know whether there's anything that meets that definition in their product. So expected uses in Massachusetts, the first one that we identified is plastics and resins, which are used to, fluoropolymer resins are used to manufacture products where heat, low coefficient of friction, and chemical resistance are needed. We expect this to be used in Massachusetts in insulation and jacketing of wire and cable. So we would expect there to be several filers in this industry sector in Massachusetts tripping thresholds. Here's an example of an SDS in that type of application. This one is a sort of easy one. They give us a CAS number. We've got the specific chemical name. If we looked back in those tables that we just talked about, we would find this in table 4, and our job here is pretty straightforward. Next expected use in Massachusetts is coatings. Fluoropolymer coatings reduce friction on the surface of medical devices, catheters, guide wires, and can also provide autoclave resistant color-coded finishes. If we had somebody manufacturing cookware in Massachusetts, it would also be included in this use category. We don't think that we do, but overall we do expect some filers in this sector, probably for medical devices. Okay, here, again, they've given us a CAS number for PTFE. PTFE is included. We've got the CAS number here. We see that it's up to 55% weight percent in the product. So because there's no lower bound, we know we have to use the 55% to do our calculations. And again, we have a fairly straightforward job here. So here's an example of one that that has PTFE in the title. but they're not listing it here in the components. You know, we do see it here under chemical nature, the fluoropolymer dispersions. So if we weren't already clued in, that would be something that would give us a clue that we really need to chase this down. But because we've already learned that PTFE is included, we've got that information there. The next expected use in Massachusetts is metal finishing. So PFAS can be used as fume suppressants and chrome plating. They can also be used in some electroless nickel and copper plating applications to provide lubricity. And we know that this is an important sector in terms of exposure and releases to the environment, but we do think that most metal finishers would be using PFAS in quantities below threshold. So, you know, the program still wants to help with this sector to find alternatives and assist companies, but there may not be so much filing in this sector. We will see. We'll see on July 1st. So here we've got a PFAS that is listed in section 3.1. We've got a CAS number. We can look it up, and I can't see my notes, but I believe that CAS number was in table 4 of the guidance. So again, a fairly straightforward job. Okay, here with this 3M acid mist suppressants, here we've got a trickier job. So we've got fluoroalkyl acrylate adducts, CAS numbers trade secret. So we don't have a ton to work from, except for they use the word fluoroalkyl. So we're definitely going to be suspicious at this point, and we're going to contact the supplier and say, you know, look, we know there's something fluorinated in here. It looks like a PFAS. Here's the definition. Does the ingredient meet the definitions of this category? And we're given a weight percentage 48 to 52, so we can take, once we find out if that is part of the category, which it probably is, we know that we can use the 50%, the mid-range of that, to do our calculations. Okay, another expected use in Massachusetts is for textiles. Typical applications would be stain or water repellency, oftentimes in military or firefighting gear, but often in outdoor gear as well. We do know that we have some facilities using PFAS in Massachusetts for this purpose. And just noting that TURA has done a grant for the Nantucket PFAS Action Group with their firefighters to work on assessing and finding alternatives to PFAS in the firefighting equipment. This is another example where they've said a fluoroalkyl acrylate polymer, and we would need to contact the supplier to find out whether this is really part of the category or not. And again, one of the best practices is that we'll be stressing is making sure you keep documentation of that contact with the supplier and their response, and following up if they have not answered you. Another use in Massachusetts is paper facilities, coating paper, grease resistance, and food packaging. And we have another fluoroalkyl acrylate copolymer here, so same thing as previous. Next use is electronic components, where PFAS can be used as a surfactant in etching solutions. There's likely many users in this type of use in Massachusetts, but they are probably under threshold. And this is an example of the TURA grant program where we did work with the Department of Plastics Engineering and the Transcene company, and came up with a non-PFAS alternative for the company. And the company is already selling that alternative. It's already put it into use. We had quite a bit, a longer session of that at the April conference. So hopefully people had a chance to see Surface cleaning is another use for PFAS. Hydrofluoroethers are popular substitutes for halogenated solvents. They're often paired with trans-dichloroethylene, which is a halogenated solvent, but is less regulated than others. So HFEs are included in the PFAS NOL definition. Popular products would be HFE 7100 and 7500. So, so be aware if you or a client is using HFEs. And here is an example SDS. We can see the trans-dichloroethylene in there with it. And we can see the fluorinated substances with CAS numbers that we're going to find in table 4 in the guidance. Here's an example of one which is not as straightforward. So they've said that there's a fluorinated fluid blend. You should definitely be suspicious at that point and follow up with the supplier. And again, another Novec product that is showing the fluorinated substances as the first two listed under section 3, or well, the first two in the second section of section 3. So that at least has CAS numbers and is pretty straightforward to find in table 4. Actually, there's 4 listed there. So this might be one of the last ones. Petroleum products, lubricants in particular, there may be some filers for that in Massachusetts. Here is an example of PFPE lubricant. Not too much going on in section 3 of the SDS, but we can look up PFPE and see that it is in table 4. You might have to look up some CAS numbers for PFPE before you can find it in table 4, but PFPE is covered. You can't really talk about PFAS without talking about AFFF. Municipal and government uses of AFFF are not covered uses under TURA. Industrial uses are covered only if you're processing or packaging. If you're putting it into products, TURA did have a project on AFFF alternatives assessment with the Department of Defense, and I do want to note that TRI rules are that if you discharge in your facility a PFAS containing AFFF, you do have to report that. So you don't have to report it if it's in your system, but if it's discharged, you do, and TURA will be following those that TRI guidance. So I think Tiffany went over, next couple slides are OTA slides, but OTA is working with DEP and EPA to provide assistance to facilities that DEP and EPA identify upstream of wastewater treatment facilities and high priority drinking water areas. So OTA is providing their same kind of assistance to target those particular types of areas. Tiffany definitely went over that slide. The program is maintaining a product list. So when we find a product that we know that we've already checked and done all the legwork to find out, or one of you has done all of the legwork to find out it is containing a PFAS, we are trying to maintain a product list so we can all help each other. So just be aware that we have that. If you want to, if you've done a bunch of legwork and you figure something out and you want to share it with us so we can help your colleagues, please do. There's a few other resources that can be helpful in assessing whether there might be PFAS in your facility or not. So there's an OEC document for coatings, paints, and varnishes. Gluge 2020 paper, which we can direct you towards, is an overview of a lot of different uses of PFAS. So that's it's worthwhile to scan through that and see if there's an activity that your facility or your client's facility does that might have PFAS that you might not have found yet, or if you're pretty sure there's PFAS somewhere but you can't figure out where it is. might be a good resource to use as well. EPA has a multi-industry study, which is also useful from 2021. And Minnesota has a metal finishing paper. So for metal finishers, that's a good resource to take a look at. So this is just kind of like one last-ish example of like how complex this all is. So Teflon, one of the earliest trainings that we did on this, somebody said, is Teflon covered? And I stupidly answered right off the cuff, which was a big mistake. So the answer is like complicated. So PTFE, which is Teflon, is included in the PFAS NOL category. There's a lot that comes into play though. If you have PTFE pellets being processed in an extrusion process, they'd be reportable, as would PTFE coating emulsions. However, if they're in an article and they meet the definitions of the article exemption, then you can use the article exemption. So for Teflon tape and spacers, things like that, the article exemption would likely apply. And then finally, TFE, the monomer used in the manufacture of PTFE, isn't included in the proposed PFAS NOL category, but it is already, it was already individually listed on TURA. So there's just like a lot of complexity with these PFAS. So just something that I keep in mind in terms of answering questions for sure. So the last time I did this presentation, DEP did these slides, but I'll just truck forward, and if you guys want to take over, yeah, you can let me know. So what does DEP expect from filers in this first reporting year? So DEP expects you to evaluate the chemicals used at the facility and really try to do the most thorough job that you can right now, and use the resources, and definitely use program resources. Because not only is, this really complex reporting a concern, but PFAS that's being used in industry by facilities that don't even know that they're PFAS can potentially contaminate the environment and cause a liability. So it's really in your best interest right now to be as thorough as you can about this. DEP expects you to send your inquiry letters to manufacturers requesting information on PFAS content, on suspected PFAS containing materials, and keep your records of letters sent and the responses received. Your record keeping is a huge part of showing what you've done. And DEP expects you to follow up with a manufacturer if you don't hear back, and keep records of those follow-ups. DEP's guidance is to file on time, even if you have not received something back from the manufacturer. Include an estimate of your PFAS use in your filing, and add a comment in your Form S stating that you've estimated your PFAS use. If a chemical, or product that you use contains fluorine, assume it's a PFAS until you have better information. Email the TURA program and describe how you've estimated PFAS in your Form S, and put PFAS estimated in your subject line. And when you receive the PFAS information from the manufacturer, you can submit an amended summary via EDP. You'll be billed for any additional compounds when the filing is amended. If your facility reports a chemical that's included in both the halogenated compounds, the C1 to C4 halogenated compounds NOL category, and the certain PFAS NOL category, you must report both categories. Again, that was 5 chemicals. I think it was at the bottom of table 3. There are instructions in the reporting appendices of what to do if this happens. In the Form S, Section 5 data field, state the reported chemicals by name, which fall in both categories, and send an email to DEP alerting MassDEP of the entries. Put both categories in the subject line, and you will only be billed 1 fee for those. So just to finish up, best practices, get a new SDS yearly. Definitely for PFAS, you want to make sure that your SDS is post 2015, but it's really best to have one that is much more current than that. Make sure you keep copies of all your SDSs and your supplier correspondence. Best practice is to reach out on all products that you use as a first pass. again, this is a point in time that it's really beneficial to you to be as thorough as possible to avoid, using a PFAS product that you don't realize is in your facility. And train your purchasing staff to question anything fluorinated that comes in the facility. And the final slide is why a preventative approach. These are all, this is maybe a year old, and these are all contaminated sites in Massachusetts from PFAS, contaminated drinking water supplies. A lot of these facilities probably had no idea that they were using PFAS or handling it incorrectly. So we're really in the TURA program trying to get ahead of that and make sure that our facilities know if they're using PFAS and provide them support for alternatives and, at least help with the knowledge if they are using PFAS to make sure that it's handled properly. So that is it for me, and I can take questions.
Thank you, Heather. Let's see questions. Sandra Wyman asked, with your definition, can one just filter for the PFAS chemicals and then have to add up all the pounds for the NOL threshold?
You do add any chemical, any PFAS that is part of the category to meet the threshold for a category. I don't quite understand the first part of that question.
Yeah, Sandra, if you can add in a little bit of a little bit of information to help us clarify, that'd be great, and we'll loop back around to you. Chris Lake, is this list available in an Excel file? I can't seem to find one on the website. Lynn indicated the list is available as a separate Excel sheet on the TURA chemical list, and I posted that chemical list link for you, Chris, so you should be able to grab that there. Sandra also said you need a logic diagram to wend through what is reportable. Thank you for that comment.
Yeah, I agree, Sandra.
It is a lot. Tiffany also provided links to the OTA resources such as the downloadable supplier notification letter and tracking and reporting PFAS under TURA and TRI, and a direct link to the supplier notification letter. And Bernie, I'm glad that you can actually hear us now. That's very helpful. And James Curran asked, is discharging AFFF considered otherwise use and subject to that threshold?
So I'm just trying to think through that. So that's a guidance that comes from TRI. I would have to read back through it, but it seems like it would be otherwise used. And once you discharge it, you do have to report it. Sorry, can you repeat that question, Rebecca? Is
discharging AFFF considered otherwise use and subject to that threshold?
Yes, you would work it into the thresholds, depending on what kind of AFFF it is, whether it meets that initial, like the TRI, individually listed at 100 pounds, or the TURA category, would be all combined to the regular TURA thresholds. I do think it would be otherwise used, but I just want to double check that TRI guidance before giving a final answer on that.
Yeah.
Okay. And Fitzpatrick asked, is reaching out on all products really required? For example, can we assume 49% HF is HF and no water with no PFAS?
So does Steve, you want to answer that, or do you want me to? You don't have to reach out on all products. You should reach out on things that are suspicious, and we've tried to give you guidance on what's suspicious. If you're pretty confident that your HF is HF, maybe do a little double check with the supplier. But I mean, HF is one instance where you're probably just buying HF. Does anybody else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, we just want to add that DEP is just asking the regulated community to do your best due diligence to check chemicals that you have in your facility to see if they have PFAS. If you're just not aware on something that is mostly HF, you know what it is. This is, you know, a learning process for all of us, and we're all trying to help each other get through this, especially this first reporting. And hopefully it will get easier as things become more regulated, you know, or we have the votes and we know what categories things are going in. But don't hesitate to reach out to us too. That TURA program's mailbox is an excellent way to get a hold of us. It's a mailbox just for the TURA program, and we all monitor it. And so that way, if we see questions like that, we can hopefully answer everybody that way too, you know, sending out a blast email. But just do your best to figure out what PFAS you have. If you're waiting to hear back from facilities, you know, you've done everything that you can, you're waiting it back, send us an email that says, you know, PFAS estimate, so that we know you're waiting for something and you might be amending your submittal in the near future after you get information. But from an enforcement point of view, we just have to be able to, you just have to be able to show us that you have done your due diligence and you've made every effort to file everything that you have and file it correctly. And that's all we're looking for, is that effort that's been made, you know, to make sure that what you have is being correctly categorized and reported.
Okay. My chat just disappeared, but give me a second and I will get it back in. Okay. So Sandra asked, I think this is referenced back to her original question. You have 4 tables and then you have the matrix. So how about a logic diagram with links to cast number lists? I'm assuming that's to make it a little bit easier to search is what Sandra's asking. So we can look into that, I think, and see what we can do to make it a little bit easier for you if that's what you're looking for.
We can, yeah, we can look at that.
Mm-hmm. Brian Colasar wanted to know, is there a product list that we can download? Heather, I know you guys are storing that somewhere.
Yeah, we can put that on the website to download.
Okay. And Sandra also asked, what if there's a wastewater treatment that destroys PFAS?
I'm assuming you're asking in the facility. That's a good question. That's one that nobody's asked yet. I don't know. I think maybe you should give us a call and we should talk.
Sounds good. She also said, oh, and different thresholds, but I'm not quite sure what in the context, if she's referring to her original comments or
logic diagram, probably.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks, Sandra. And then John Rashko provided some links to the TRI PFAS firefighting guidance. And
thank you, John. I was going to put that in, so I appreciate that.
And Sandra had a comment, would have been good to have thought of that before regulating the universe. Thanks, Sandra. Okay, are there any more questions? Give that a minute. All right. If not, I will go ahead and proceed, and I will be doing the enforcement presentation next. So just give me 1 second, folks. Okay, can everyone see my presentation?
Yep.
All right. So my name is Rebecca Dolan from the MassDEP, and I do TURA compliance and enforcement. And I'm just going to talk to you about the enforcement for a little bit. So in the past year, we've addressed all outstanding enforcement issues from reporting year 2019 through 2021. We sent out 30 notices of non-compliance and 4 warning letters. Enforcement was sent to both facilities and TUR planners during this time frame, and it covered a range of infractions. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of a list, and then I'll talk about what we're covering for this year. So we had failure to file, missing chemical or chemicals, failure to respond to QA/QC requests, missing plan summaries, missing a TUR planner certification, incomplete plan summaries, failure to hire an active TUR planner, hiring a TUR planner who was not certified for the plan type they completed, signing a plan as a TUR planner when you are expired, and signing for a plan type that you are not certified to. These were all things that we addressed just this past year. And so upcoming avenues of enforcement for this non-planning year. Failure to file or a non-filer. What does that mean? If a facility filed in a prior reporting year, but is not filing in a current reporting year and did not indicate that they are closed or they are not applicable for the current filing year, either because they're below threshold, FTE count, stopped using a particular chemical, we would consider you a non-filer and we would reach out. If you have a missing chemical or chemicals, when a facility files in a current reporting year but did not include chemicals that was on a prior filing and did not list that chemical as either being eliminated from their processes or below reporting thresholds, we would consider that a missing chemical and we'll reach out to you. QA/QC non-response. If a facility filed for a current reporting year but had issues with either the Form S and Form R data not agreeing mathematically, or did not respond to our outreach, we'd consider that a non-response and we would reach out to you. One other thing for the QA/QC non-response is if we find, I know some folks filed the Form A incorrectly for chemicals that only allowed for the Form R, those also will receive QA/QC outreach from the department. And if you don't respond or amend, we would consider that a non-response and start following up with you before we proceed to enforcement. So what are some reminders for the upcoming year? As always, try your best to file on time. Remember to respond to outreach about your facility's filings from TURA program staff. The majority of them, outreach before enforcement will come from me or from Lynn Kane. And occasionally some things will come from Heather Tenney about your numbers. TURA program staff send outreach to the authorized signer listed on the toxics use fee worksheet. That's something I want everyone to just think about for a minute. Make sure that person knows what to do if they receive an outreach email from the TURA program. I usually follow up my outreach emails with a call. I had some folks who had received the email and thought it was spam or weren't quite sure who they were forwarding it to within their company, and they didn't respond and ended up getting enforcement when they could have avoided it. So make sure if you're listing somebody who doesn't really follow up with the TURA day-to-day, they know what to do when they receive an email from us. That's really important to them. Notify the TURA program if your authorized signer has left the company. In this day and age, there's a lot of turnover, and we understand that. If somebody has left the company and we're trying to reach out to them and we're getting no response, we do try to follow up by calls, but if we're having a hard time reaching the company, usually through your phone tree, it's best to know in advance if there's someone else we should be sending it to. As a follow-up reminder, remember to update your phone tree for the facility. If someone cannot be reached by email, we do try to call. I've spent a lot of time on phone trees and usually end up with somebody doing billing or payment because I cannot find somebody who handles the environmental side of things or facility management. So please double check your phone tree to make sure someone can get through. I will leave a message in a general mailbox if that's the only thing I can find, so be sure to check those. And last but not least, if you find a mistake in your filing, please amend it. And just as an aside, we have restarted the TURA facility audits. Facilities will be receiving requests for information or RFIs for their plans, and the audits will now include an on-site inspection. If you have received that RFI, you'll be in contact with me and we'll schedule our inspections. Is there any questions? That's pretty much all I have for you guys, so I will be glad to take any questions.
Okay, we have one question from Nyoka Davis. What are the frequency of these audits?
So the audits are on, I think we have 12 picked for the year, and it'll be as they go. So as one finishes, I will start the next one. So there's no necessarily frequency tied to it. As I finish one, I start the next one. Any other questions?
Another one
I do
from
another
Jesse.
question, but I think I may just better to talk it out.
Okay.
So as it relates to the plants that do get audited for the TURA report, and is that just like every single facility that sends out or submits a TURA report, or just a sample? Like, I'm talking as in an entirety, not like within a year. I presume you'd have 12 per year, just 12 plants, but are all facilities subjected to this?
Yes,
audits?
we pull from the entire filing community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. And so Jesse, the audits are, for the most part, they're random. That we do have certain criteria that we narrow down with, but it's not, we don't have a lot, so it still gives us a very large number, and then they're random picked from that. So what confidentiality measures are in place for plans that are requested to be sent into the DEP? So Daryl, when we send the RFI request, you can actually fill out a confidential business information form. That's included, that information's included in the RFI. So if we get one of those back, then we treat them that way. Other than that, the plans are reviewed, received, and then destroyed usually after the audit is completed.
One more question from Sierra MacLeod. Would you want the TURA planner there to answer questions? She is a consultant and does not work with just one company.
I'm assuming, Sierra, that you mean when we do the inspection. So we usually give the facility a little bit of a heads up when we're coming out. It's not a complete surprise. So if they want their TURA planner there, they are more than welcome to invite you. So you'd have to talk to your facilities that you worked with and just give them a heads up that they have more than willing to invite you. That's fine.
She says, okay, thanks.
Yep. Anybody else? Okay. So I will turn it over to Lynn, and she'll be doing the data release.
Right. Okay. I'm going to be discussing the 2021 TURA information release.
Lynn, we see
Yeah?
your presenter mode. We don't see your slides. We see your notes page.
Okay.
We see your slides and notes instead of just the slides itself, Lynn.
Under
Okay.
display settings at the top, Lynn.
Yeah.
Next one.
Next one over to the left.
Yep. Duplicate slideshow.
Is that better?
There you go.
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. I'm going to be discussing the 2021 TURA information release. Oh dear. Sorry. Okay. Out of 1,500 chemicals listed under TURA, 127 were reported in 2021, down from 133 in 1990. The number of filers rose to 728 in 1991 and 1992, gradually declined, and then rose again to 713 in 2001, largely due to the reporting of PBTs. The number of filers has since declined to 432 in 2021. The number of Form S's reported has followed a similar trend, decreasing from a high of 2,666 in 1994 to 1,344 in 2021. As is shown here, chemical use decreased from 1.2 billion pounds in 1990 to 649 million pounds in 2021. Byproduct generation decreased from 127 million pounds in 1990 to 71 million pounds in 2021. The TURA reported production ratio is what we use in measuring progress to account for changes in production. Progress in toxics use reduction, the 2007 core group. It includes all industry categories and chemicals subject to reporting in 2007 and remained subject to reporting in 2021 at the same threshold. It excludes trade secret chemicals and chemicals designated as higher hazard substances and chemicals added through EPA TURA after 2007. It includes 389 filers, which represents 90% of the 2021 TURA reporting universe. In reporting year 2021, the 2007 core group, adjusting for changes in production, reduced total chemical use by 62% from 2007 to 2021. In reporting year 2021, the 2000 core group adjusted for changes in production reduced byproduct generation 41% from 2007 to 2021. The 2000 core group includes all industry categories and chemicals subject to reporting in 2000 and remained subject to reporting in 2021. It provides a longer history than the 2007 core group, and it includes 341 filers, which represents 79% of the reporting universe. Again, it also excludes trade secret data. In reporting year 2021, the 2000 core group, adjusted for changes in production, reduced total chemical use by 75% from 2000 to 2021. In reporting year 2021, the 2000 core group, adjusted for changes in production, reduced byproduct generation 67% from 2000 to 2021. In reporting year 2021, including trade secret data, the total reported chemical use was 649 million pounds. The total reported shipped in product was 279 million pounds. The total reported generated as byproduct was 71 million pounds. The total reported on-site releases was 2.5 million pounds. And the total reported transfers off-site was 33 million pounds. In 2021, chemicals processed accounted for 69% of total reported chemical use. Chemicals manufactured accounted for 14% of total reported chemical use, and chemicals otherwise used accounted for 17% of total reported chemical use, including trade secret data. The top 20 chemicals used in 2021 accounted for 84% or 381 million pounds of the total use reported, excluding trade secret data. The 2021 top 4 chemicals alone accounted for 44% of total use reported, and they were sodium hydroxide, hydrochloric acid, methanol, and sodium hypochlorite. The 2021 top 20 chemicals, excluding trade secret data, accounted for 89% of the total reported byproduct, 89% of the total reported shipped in product, 93% of total on-site releases, and 93% of total off-site transfers. The 2021 total number of facilities by industrial sector chart this demonstrates that the chemical manufacturing sector had the largest number of filers, which was 83 out of the 432 filers. The chemical manufacturing sector also had the greatest percentage of chemical use, which was 59%. Chemical distributors were the second largest percentage of chemical use, 21%. Although chemical distributors were the second largest percentage of chemical use, they had virtually no impact on byproduct generation. On the other hand, the paper manufacturing sector, which accounted for 3% of total statewide use, accounted for 16% of byproduct generation. Waste management and remediation services, which accounted for 4% of total statewide use, had the highest contribution of on-site releases at 26%. Massachusetts manufacturers and other businesses subject to TURA have dramatically reduced their reliance on toxic chemicals, making Massachusetts a national leader in toxics use reduction. Through toxics use reduction, Massachusetts businesses have saved money while reducing pollution released to the environment, chemical transportation risks, workplace hazards, and toxics in products and waste. The 2021 TURA information release is in its final approval stage in the Massachusetts DEP Commissioner's Office and is not yet on our website. The most recent 2020 TURA information release can be found on the MassDEP TURA website, along with former years' TURA information releases. The 2021 TURA data extracts and former years' information releases can be found on our website at this address. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. It looks like you're still sharing your screen.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay. All right. Gonna take a quick look what comments we have. Sierra McLeod asked, I might have missed this, but does this take into account TURA chemical list change, since the pounds reported would increase based on the addition of new chemicals to the list? It looks like Heather might have answered that. All our core data analysis account for changes to the chemical list. For instance, the 2007 core only includes chemicals reportable in 2007 and remaining reportable through the analysis period. Okay. I'm not seeing anything else. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay. We're going to give you guys a quick 5-minute break to go to the bathroom. I have 10:57. So I would say if everyone can be back, we'll start up at 11:02, and that should give Walter plenty of time. And so you guys can go ahead and go. I will pause the recording and we can restart it once everybody's back. Okay. Walter, you should be all set to go.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody. We haven't done this in a year, and next year we hope to actually do this live in person. But it's that time of the year for our annual How to Use EDP. There have been some very minor tweaks to the system since last year. We are continually trying to improve the system to make it better, but the reports are due July 1st, on or before July 1st. And the system at this point is telling me that we have 44 submittals for 2022 filings. I don't quite believe that number at the moment, but we'll look into that. But we do know that the system is working as it should. Our DEP contacts Myself, walter.hope@mass.gov. EDP system help for the reporting system. The help desk phone number is there. Passwords and usernames, only you, the user, has access to passwords and usernames. And that's often using your saved secret questions so you can respond back and the system can understand that you are the proper person to be using or requesting a password reset. For online filing questions, emailing me is the best way of contacting me. My new phone number, we're all issued cell phones because we no longer have desk phones, is on the screen, 857-972-5623. But the best way to reach me is via email. And when I post this up on the internet, we'll get Lynn and other people's correct phone numbers on here as well. Contacts, you've heard from Heather today with the, Tiffany with the Office of Technical Assistance. They're a great resource, and as she mentioned, they are confidential and they are free. You are paying for their services. You've heard from Heather today with the Toxic Use Reduction Institute, and they do great research and training for facilities in Massachusetts. And then we have the US EPA. While we don't piggyback directly on EPA's TURA planning, we are very similar to them. And we make good use of their question and answer document that they have online. I would suggest strongly that on your screen, on your computer, in your files, however you're working at your business, that you have information readily available when you're getting ready to start your reporting using the EDP system. We're going to go over an overview of the form structure for EDP, overview of the system navigation. If you see the four little the little diamond triangle box there on the left-hand side, we're going to flash over those slides today because this is not a planning year, but those forms, those slides are in this presentation, but we're not going to go over them at all. We'll also briefly talk about TURA Planner, EMS, and RC Planner certification. Again, I would suggest strongly that you have these materials on hand before you start your filing. The online filing tips, which are available on DEP's webpage. Last year's filing, if some people prefer to print it out and make the changes there, and that works if that works for you. The Form S instructions and appendices, those have been slightly amended this year. The Form R instructions from the EPA, and your payment information if you are going to be paying online electronically. As always, in the past many, many years since we've had this system, the system is very much a linear process. You start with one screen, one form, you start filling that out, and the system learns what you're reporting and what your facility is doing. So you log in, and I'm going to go over the screen by screen, but this is just a generic start list. You log in and access the TURA reporting forms. You access the DEP webpage, click on EDP online filing. You get your username and password, which you assign yourself. If you're a new person, you would have to log on and get set up with the system. There's no paper involved in that at all if you're a new person. Click on the forms and then click on toxics and hazards, and then the Toxic Use Reduction Act, and make sure you're clicking on the reporting option. There is a planning or planner certification option there as well, but that is only required, A, for planners, and B, during planning years, which again, this is not a planning year. Then you would come to the pre-form and you would start there. The Form S cover sheet, sections 1 and 2, which is general information and how many people work at your facility, including guidance on what that means. The Form S cover sheet, section 3, which is chemicals no longer reported. That's a great place for you to tell us if you're not reporting on a chemical this year being 2022. And the Form S cover sheet is next, the section 4, which is the production unit information. Next up is the Form S facility-wide use of chemicals, which includes section 1 through 3, the chemical use amounts, materials, accounting, waste treatment chemicals, and then section 4, S, the production unit, use of chemicals, which shows you that information that is used in the specific production units. And then there's a separate page or a form just for your notes. So any notes that you have, you can put in section 4. And then next up, frequently, but not always, is a state-only Form R or Form A. That includes sections 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the federal Form R. Our requirements on the federal Form R are slightly different than the EPA's. Sometimes we do ask that you fill out a state Form R, even if you have completed a federal Form R. If this was a planning year, you would be doing a plan summary selection form and then picking, and that would lead you to do the EMS RC or TURA RC update. Again, this is not a planning year, so you won't be doing that. Again, if there was a planning year, you would have a certification by a facility manager of the TURA RC or EMS plan, and this is not a planning year. You will then go next to the fee worksheet, and then the signatures by the facility manager, and that is determined by your facility as to who should be signing that screen. The payment screens are next. We will send you an invoice, and payment is due 30 days after receipt of the invoice. The invoices will not be generated until at least late August of this summer. Next up, the screen will show you a receipt, and then you submit. And I'm going to say submit a lot of times this morning. Make sure you submit. Do not forget to submit. I've said that for years. It sounds crazy, but we don't want to do enforcement against you if you forgot to push one button. So remember to submit. Then you can print your submittal either to paper or to a PDF and save that in your files. You are required to save them, to have them on site and have them at least available if a DEP inspector shows up. If this was a planning year again, you would have a certification of the TUR plan by our Massachusetts DEP certified, valid, current, non-expired TUR planner. Again, this screen is all for planning years, so I'm just going to skip right over it. And Heather and a few others today talked about documenting what DEP is expecting. Remember to document your calculations and your source material, and that doubly so with your PFAS investigations, your supplier letters that you've sent out asking for information. We can't assume anything, so if you have it backed up by documentation, you sent a letter out asking for information, you received nothing back, put a note in your file saying we received nothing back, we asked again, we received nothing back. You've done what you can. That was what Veronica was talking about, doing your due diligence. You can shake the tree only so many times. Do the best you can. The system is still very much built to go forward, not to built to be going backwards. If you input information ahead of time into the system and you decide all of a sudden that, or you see that there are 4 chemicals showing up in your throughput page, that's because you told us about 4 chemicals. So make sure you only enter in the chemicals that you must report on. And if you try to delete a chemical, sometimes in rare cases that can corrupt the system and unfortunately make it so you have to start all over again. So make sure you only enter in chemicals that you have to. Deleting or changing a form that is connected to another can affect the entire submittal. There's a parent and child relationship between these forms. If you do delete a form and you intend to, and that's what you wanted to do, you will get this warning message with a little yellow exclamation point. It's not an error message, it's just a warning. It's just a kind of a jab in your side. Are you sure? Do you really want to do this? And if you want to validate this form and go forward, you would say yes. The system works on any browser. We've been testing it exhaustively to try to debug a couple of issues that we've had. We've tried Edge, Google, we've tried Safari, and Firefox. It's working on all of them as it's supposed to. The one case where we do think we have an issue sometimes is that some of your facilities have very aggressive firewalls at your facilities. And sometimes this system is passing information back and forth between DEP's servers, which are up in the sky, up in the cloud, and your facility. And that may cause a problem. You may need to leave your facility to do this work. We have no control over the security issues at your facility. The EDP TURA system uses a combination of screens and blocks to build your submittal, and we'll go over that. So we have screens, which is what you see physically on your screen, and then the screens have required data elements. Some of the data elements are arranged in blocks, which are built individually. This is to accommodate companies that some companies have one production unit and they need to add one. Some companies have many production units. Those are determined by you. The state has never said, this is what a production unit is. You know what you're doing. So you build your blocks and your production units and your information yourself, or your company has in the past. We've discovered in the past, it's kind of cliche, but this is kind of an opportunity, especially if you're a new person starting in a company. We've had people that have contacted us and they said, this makes no sense to me at all. The production units are all wrong. There is a way to deal with that, and we'll talk about that as well. The first block is always provided. You select edit, and I'll go over this more on an actual screen. You update to save it. Update is the saving. To add an additional block, you click on the add button, and some blocks have sub-blocks, so subunits to each individual block. When all the required data for the screen and all the blocks has been entered and added and updated, you would then click on the error check and next button on the screen to move forward to the next segment of the filing. If you do see an error, the system won't let you go forward, so you need to correct those errors before you keep going any further. The navigation buttons that we use in EDP, again, I've mentioned error check, so that is looking at missing data entry for the entire screen, the family of forms that you're working at. Saves the entries on the page that you are viewing. Prints only the page that you're viewing at that moment in time. So if there's nothing on the page, you will print an empty page. If everything is filled out on that page, you will receive what you see in front of you. Exits the screen you're on without affecting any prior input. It does not save any of the data that has been added or changed. An error check does not do a mathematical check. So if you punched in for a text field the letter X, that's what it's going to save, and it's not going to say this makes sense or not. If you punched in 1 million pounds of chemical used and you used 10,000 pounds, it will not say, hey, this seems wrong. We'll catch that on the back end with the QA/QC check that we do. When you click on the exit, you'll receive a message that says you're about to save your changes. You have the options of saying yes, no, or cancel. Cancel would take you back to the screen and allow you to make any further changes. If you say yes, that will validate that form and move forward. So getting into the system, you go to the mass.gov webpage. The webpage is at the top of this slide here. And again, all these presentations will be posted on DEP's website after this session in a day or two, hopefully. You click on the EDP filing, and then you click on login or create an account. And then you come to the EDP login screen. Now you see the lead text here. This is telling you that if there are any issues at all, it'll tell you that it's unavailable Fridays through Saturdays for backup purposes. If it's not functioning at that moment that you're there on the screen, there'll be a message there, hopefully. It works. Almost every single person got their information in without any problem, but there are occasionally some outliers. If you have an existing username and password, you would type those in where it says username and password. If you're a new person, or if you need to reset your password, you can do that. If you're a new user, you would register, get a username and a password. You pick the username, you pick the password. And again, there is zero paperwork involved in this process. And I just went over that. So a new user may be you're a new employee at the facility. If you're a brand new facility that has never reported to DEP, you'll need to contact us ahead of time. We'll send you out a form and that will create the company, the brand new company in DEP system. It's not a problem. It takes less than a day usually, but it's entirely doable. And there is a form that's required to do that, but there's no signatures at all either required for that. Then you would go to the forms button. If you can see it here where it says forms, we'd scroll down to toxics and hazards. Click on toxics and hazards. And then you would go down to the bottom of toxics and hazards to Toxic Use Reduction Act reporting. Make sure you click on the reporting button and not the certification button, and then click on that. Sometimes people are looking for a whole pile of forms. This is an electronic system. The forms do not show up individually. As I mentioned before, the system starts off with one page and then it starts building based on your past history. You click on Start Transaction and you move down. I almost said stat. My Massachusetts is trying to come out on me here. The system will ask if you represent a business for this transaction. In almost all cases, you will say no. If you have more than one business that you're representing, sometimes a yes is appropriate, but that's very infrequent. So you would usually click no and then continue. And then you would move forward. Now we're coming to what we call the pre-form. You enter in the tax ID number for your facility with no dashes. Next is your DEP facility ID number, again with no dashes. And make sure that those are the correct numbers. It's not your transporter ID. It's not your EPA TRI ID. It's your tax payer ID number and your DEP facility ID number. They have to be entered in the correct order. Otherwise, you will not be going any further. The reporting year is currently starting at 2022, which is the year that we're working on here. If you do owe us a past report for prior years, you had filed nothing in prior years and you should have, the system will allow you to do that as well. Are you filing a trade secret? Almost all of you are not filing trade secrets. So you would say no, and then you would go forward and say next. Again, the tax ID number, and I got to make a change on the screen before we post it. Only 2022 data is being entered in this particular case. So make sure you're using that properly. If you are doing a trade secret filing, you would click yes, and then you would click the, you click the no box, but then only enter in the sanitized information, not the secret information. And Lynn Kane has very specific information for trade secret filers. So make sure you contact her regarding that information. So after you click next, you'll come to the transaction overview, which includes your transaction number, which is a unique number identified with this specific transaction that you're working on, and the facility identification number. And the first line, the first form that's showing up is just a generic toxic use reduction line. You click on the next button, and then you come to the Form S cover sheet. The Form S cover sheet pre-fills with information that we already know about you because you're in our data system. The top right will include the reporting year, the facility name, and the facility identification number. Section 1 includes the facility name and address. And if this is not your correct facility name, or if this is not your correct address, stop. Do not go forward because we need to fix that. Are you making a trade secret claim? Again, most of you will be saying no there. If you are, is this sanitized or unsanitized? If If you are doing a trade secret filing, you would say this is a sanitized filing. Section H here, line H, are all of the chemicals in this report used only to treat waste or control pollution. So there are no production units. Nobody here is in the business of cleaning waste at their facility or making air pollution. So if the answer there is yes, if you're only using chemicals, you're using chemicals, but they're being used to treat waste or control air pollution. There are no production units. You say yes, and the system would skip you past any of the production unit information. Most of you will be saying no here and going forward. The taxpayer ID number shows up on the screen, and the TRI ID number that we're aware of shows up on the screen as well. The FTE number and what that means is the next section, section 2 on the Form S cover sheet. Pick the appropriate FTE button here. And this determines the base fee for your facility. So if you're a 10-person company using 2 chemicals, and at the end of this filing, the fee form is saying that you owe $31,000 something, you clicked the wrong button. So you'll need to go back to this page, correct the FTE number, and revalidate every single page that follows. So make sure when you fill out the FTE number that you're filling out the correct information. Again, remember to document. That includes your FTE information. So if you're saying you have a trend between 10 and 20 employees, make sure you've got that documented as part of your paperwork that goes along with this filing that you keep on site. Again, if the name and address is not correct on the Form S cover sheet, stop. Contact me, and we will fix it. And again, I've got to make some corrections here. The facility name is the name that the facility had during calendar year or reporting year 2022. Sorry for the incorrect information there. Are all of the chemicals, again, used to treat only waste or control pollution? If the answer there is yes, you'll skip the production unit information, and then again, the FTE information. And the EPA has a great Q&A document. It's quite exhaustive, actually, on what exactly an FTE is. There's a wide range of people at a facility that includes. That includes your temp workers. That includes your board of directors. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty, that includes your vacation time. Includes a whole variety of people. Includes a plumber that comes onto the site to fix a leak on your production line. It does not include the plumber that comes on site to fix your bathroom. So it's quite an exhaustive number of what ifs, but it's worth looking at. Next we come to, so now we've gone forward, and now the pages are starting to show up and build what you need to report. Next is section 3, the chemicals that you reported last year being, in this case, 2021. This year is 2022. And it's kind of, after so many years of this program, Rebecca noticed that we had an other button here on the screen, and it doesn't open up a comment section. So in the past, people may have been using comments in any other comment section, which would have been fine. We are working with our programmers to build a new comment section, but that's not yet available. This is the first example of a block, and each screen must be error checked before you go forward. But let me show you what happens next. So if on this particular screen, we have a unique block, and to update it, to add information into this, you would click on the update button right here in the top right-hand corner, or you would click on the add button, I'm sorry. You would type in the CAS number from the DEP list. Again, there are no dashes in our CAS numbers. You would include the proper checkboxes to why you're not reporting on that chemical. You would click on update, and then you would move forward with the error check and next button. If you needed to add additional chemicals that you're not reporting this year, we would click on the Add Chemicals button, and another block would show up, and you would fill that out as appropriately. And then click Error Check the next. Okay, and this is an example of 2 blocks now for this particular company, where they're telling us that they're not reporting on formaldehyde and they're not reporting on endosulfan and metabolites. So that's 2 unique blocks, 1 screen, and then when that's all filled out with information, we would click on the Error Check button at the bottom and move forward. If you then put a unique block and you realize that you don't need to have that block there, you can delete that block before you move forward, and then error check and next and move forward as well. Again, document, document, document. Next up is the Form S cover sheet, section 4, for the facility-wide description of production units. The system will present to you, and you scroll down. So this screen includes many unique blocks for each production unit, as well as the chemicals located within or used within that production unit. These production units were determined by you, by either you or by somebody at your facility, maybe long, long ago, as I mentioned. And if this is a good time to see if these production units make sense. A word of caution though, production units here on your report should mimic your TUR plan production units as well. So if you've decided to change everything, that the production units that exist in our system are incorrect, you can say, is this production unit in use for this reporting year? You can say no, and then create a brand new production unit. An example I've been using for years, there was a company years ago that made spray paint. And they told us that they made spray paint, period. And they used whatever number of chemicals making that spray paint. And then they got the message perhaps, and they broke the production units out into making blue, red, white, green spray paint. But then when it came to bringing that back to the chemicals per color of spray paint, I don't believe they could make it work in their math and their calculations. So a year later, they went back to just making spray paint. Again, that's up to you. That's up to your facility. We do not tell you that this is what a production unit must be, because we're not a manufacturing facility. You know what you do best. Again, the screen can contain more than one production unit if that's the case. The production unit process and the product cannot be changed. Those are set relatively in stone. Those were determined by your company again in the past. The 4-digit NAICS codes can be changed if necessary. You would click on the edit button on the top of the screen here. On the edit button, and then you can change the NAICS codes. You cannot change the process and the product. Okay, so we have our unique block, and you click on edit to edit whatever you need to edit that can be edited. If you, let's see here. If you need to permanently delete a production unit, if you're never going to make that again, that product, let's say you were making kitty litter before, and now you're making windshield washer. We may still have the ability to delete that production unit in our data system, so you don't have to see these things popping up year after year. So if you need to change the NAICS codes, as I mentioned before, you can click on the edit, change your NAICS codes, and then update it to save that information. Is the production unit in use? As I mentioned before, the answer is yes. You'll be required to fill out the necessary information. If no, you will skip over that particular production unit and you'll be able to go forward. The NAICS codes can be clicked by clicking on a select word, and all the potential codes pop up, so you can pick from there, or you can find out what your NAICS codes are from a variety of sources, including DEP's appendices on the Form S instructions. The CAS number. So this is another unique block on the production unit page. You'll click on the edit button. And then you punch in the CAS number, again, with no dashes. And then next up, you will pick your process codes that were previously selected by your company, and you'll indicate with a little check mark which process codes you'll be using for this year's reporting. If you need to add additional process codes, click on the Add Process Codes button. You'll move forward. When you're done, you'll say Add, and you'll be able to continue. DP for category codes for CAS numbers. DP does not use alphanumerics like EPA does. We have our own unique 4-digit so-called CAS numbers that we use, and those are in our list of chemicals as well. Again, each chemical is in a specific block. If you need to add process codes or add chemicals, you'll do that as well. And I mentioned the process codes. So if you click on the Add Process Codes, you click here, as you see on the screen, click Edit, then check off the new process code that you've just selected, and then select Update. And again, Update in this system means save, and then you'll go forward. And again, here's a blank Add Chemicals. So if you're adding a new chemical that you haven't previously reported on at your facility, you'll be able to edit, add a CAS number, and go forward. Once all of the blocks or all of the fields in a block are completed, click on the Update. Update again means add. Once they're all done for all the production units and all the blocks, you'll click on Error Check and Next, and you'll be able to go forward. If you have a brand new production unit, so you've decided you're doing a new process that you've never done before at the facility, you can click on Add a Production Unit and punch in everything new, fresh, new production unit number. You cannot reuse an existing production unit number. Describe the process, describe the product, your NAICS codes that are appropriate with it, add the chemicals, and then go forward. Error check and next. And in this case, it's an example of an error message. So the system will outline where the error message is somewhere on that screen that you're looking at. And it's basically telling you with a little kind of a poke in the side, you seem to have missed something. And in this particular case, we've missed checking off one of the process codes. So you would click, make the change, and when you complete, and added the update, which is the save button again, click on the error check and next, and then you would go forward. Next becomes the Form F screen or page. This is a facility-wide use of the chemical. Again, the system knows because of the production units what chemicals you're reporting on. You've told us that. So the system will build a series of blocks that start with one, and then if you scroll down on your page, you'll see the additional chemicals as they are popping up because, again, you told us about them. If you're seeing a chemical that you don't need to report on, you'll have to go back to the production unit page, remove that chemical, delete that chemical from the production unit page, validate, save, and error check and next, and go forward again, and then that chemical will be missing from this screen. Click on the edit button as before, and you'll punch in the numbers. You must type in a number, at least a 0 for each box. It doesn't show up in when you save it, but you need to punch in a 0 at least for each field. We do not need commas. The only place we need decimal points is for lead and for dioxin. This is the first page, I think, where we have little blue question marks. If you click on or hover over the question mark, it will give you the definition of what we mean, what the definition of manufactured, processed, otherwise used, and so on is. We do not expect you to report to the fourth decimal point unless, again, it's dioxin compounds, and lead can be down to 1/2 pound. The system knows that lead is in grams, so you don't need to tell us grams as well. Again, I just mentioned this before. If you see a chemical here at this point that you don't need to be reporting on, it's showing up because you told us about it. Go back to the production units, delete it, and you'll have to error check it next and come back forward again. In the olden days, when we had paper, some people filled out all, plus or minus, kind of a wiggly thing. We had a few people putting in infinity for things like byproduct or quadratic equations. Perhaps all valid, but this is a very specific data system. We need whole numbers. In most cases, again, lead can be half a pound and dioxin can be down to the gram level. And this is all about mass balance, of course. Generally speaking, what goes in must come out, generally speaking. But in the cases that what goes in does not come out, does not equal, then we have the section 2, materials balance, and other reporting abnormalities. So we have chemicals reported on site, consumed or transformed, held in inventory, chemical compound, or other. Again, we need at least a 0 in these boxes to make you go forward. And then there's a question F as in Frank. Did anything non-routine happen at this facility that would affect the data? So why aren't your mass balances adding up even after punching in this information? Some unfortunate examples here can be a batch of off-spec raw material that you can't use. So you started using it, but it's bad, all the way to the worst example of literally a facility catching fire or blowing up. Those are strange and unusual, but if you tell us about them when this box, the question and answer box pops up, that will help us out tremendously. Again, often mass balance equals input, but if it doesn't, again, please tell us about that in the comment box. And if people are wondering, I live on a boat and I'm home today, so I'm occasionally wobbling around here because of wakes from passing traffic. If you don't have a mass balance, and the system will actually look at the numbers and say you punched in 10,000 pounds of otherwise used, but your byproduct and your shipped in product don't equal 10,000 pounds, or say 11,000 pounds, it will give you this warning message, and we will ask you to say okay, and then hopefully explain that issue away. The box M, which is the separate page that pops up, does not always appear. Some of you have gotten nervous in the past when a text box doesn't show up. In many cases it appears. There are many triggers that force that to pop up, but in some cases a text box does not appear. So don't worry if that doesn't happen. Again, this is all about mass balance. Next on the throughput page, section 3, are chemicals used in waste treatment units. So you had some chemicals, some of that chemical perhaps being used to make something. Other portions of that chemical were being used to control pollution or to treat waste. If that is the case, you would click on yes here, enter the number of pounds. Did it increase by 10% or more compared to the prior reporting year? If yes, click on yes. If no, click on no, and then go forward. Again, remember, document, document, document. When all the unique blocks are updated and on that particular screen, and this is the throughput screen, you'll click on the error check and next, and you'll go forward. And this is a completed Form S cover sheet. And then next up is the Form S chemical use by production units. There are 2 pieces of it here. The top section is the chemical use by production unit, and the bottom section is the byproduct side. So we'll click on update to save. Again, update is saving a particular block. And the top part here is the use by production unit. So the production unit number shows up, it's pre-filled. The chemical is pre-filled as well. Quantity of use code is here. In this case, I picked 10,000 pounds and between 10,000 and 100,000 pounds. You would click on the process codes that are applicable to this particular chemical in this particular production unit. Did the change in the chemical go up or down? So did it increase or decrease? And the production unit or the toxic use reduction technique codes. And you can enter in up to 11 of those. And then here's the lower part, the byproduct. Did the process code for the byproduct. Select those. Did the byproduct go up or down? Did it increase or decrease? And click on the technique codes there as well. And then section 5 is the at the moment, the catch-all for any comments that you have. So you can have a maximum of 250 characters. Please, please, please do not copy and paste your information into this box. It's caused a few problems with a couple of facilities. For whatever reason, the system does not like cutting and pasting, especially in text fields. And there's a maximum of 250 characters allowed. So you punch that information in, error check and next and go forward. Again, document. Next up is the state-only R or the form, the state-only form R, a state-only form A form. It only appears if the chemical is a state-only chemical. We have some differences between the EPA system reporting regarding some chemicals. We believe we have fixed, we had a little glitch in the past years where some companies were not receiving a state form R or form A when they should have been. We believe we fixed that. So here's a little bit of information about the state-only form R, form A. Only some people can use this form, and you can read this later. It's also on the form. Make sure, Rebecca mentioned some people have used it in the past when they were not eligible to use the state-only form R or the state-only form A form. So make sure you understand the proper use of that form. The form A, this is the form, the beginning of the state-only form R, form A. If you're saying you are using the form R, you would say so here with you click the yes box. And then we start filling out fields that are extremely similar to the federal Form R filing. And that's where all the guidance on this particular piece of the filing, all those guidance documents are coming from the EPA instructions. Section 5, Section 6, fill out the information as necessary without at least a 0 if that's appropriate. We do have the option here, if you have no air emissions, for example, we'd check on the check if not applicable box, and the system would allow you to bypass that and go forward. Section 7A, the on-site waste treatment methods and efficiency. This is another section where we have unique blocks, and you can add blocks for that particular chemical if you have more than one waste treatment type system at your facility. And you would pick out the waste treatment stream code. And again, all these codes are coming from the EPA instructions. And you fill that out, edit, and you would update, which is again the save, and you would move forward. If you need to add additional waste treatment blocks, as it shows here with the yellow arrow, you would click on add additional waste treatment methods, and you would go forward and fill those out as well. And here's an example of 2 waste treatment blocks. Okay. If you click on the select for the waste treatment codes, the list of waste treatment codes pops up on the screen. Double click on the appropriate code and that will fill in the block for you. Next up is one second here. Losing my voice. Section 7 and 8 of the state version of the Form R. Section 7B, again, click on the appropriate energy recovery methods that you may or may not have used. On-site recycling processes, click on those select buttons, and then fill out the Section 8 matrix. Current or prior year, in this case, would be 2021. The current year for reporting is 2022, and so on for the following and second following years. Did you, question 8.10, did your facility engage any source reduction activities? If yes, click yes, and then fill out the appropriate information down here below. Error check and next when you're finished with the state-only version of the Form R, and you'll go forward and we'll see what's next. Remember, document, document, document. During planning years, which this is not, the next pieces which we'll skip over would include a plan summary selection form, a plan summary, a resource conservation plan summary, or an EMS progress report or EMS report. I'm going to skip over these because they are not applicable to this year's training. And the next form for this year would be your toxic fee worksheet. Remember, this fee is actually completely filled out already based on the information you told us. And we will, in almost all cases, bill you, invoice you based on this information. So again, if you have a 50-person company and you used one chemical, and the bottom line here on line I, or JK, line L is $31,450. You told us at the beginning, in this case, that you had over 500 employees. So you would need to go all the way back to the beginning, correct your FTE count, and revalidate every single screen, every single form back to the fee worksheet. So make sure, again, that your radio buttons, that's what they're called, the little buttons, on the first page that you saw, the form-as cover sheet has the correct number of FTEs. Again, we'll invoice you. The invoice is due 30 days after you receive the invoice, not 30 days after you send the report. We expect, again, to send the invoices out sometime in late August, September of this summer. The late payment, the late fee, or late reporting, that is all statutorily mandated with a $1,000 late fee. That is not a fee that we can waive. Document, document, document. Again, the late fee is not a penalty. There are potential penalties for not filing on time or for missing a chemical. So make sure that you're reporting what you should, and I'll correct the date here. The date for reporting is on or before July 1 of 2023. And that actually means midnight in the days of computers, not in paper. So make sure you report on time. The vast majority of filers start work on these about now, and the huge percentage show up in the last week of the reporting. The earlier you get it in, the less stressed the system will be. So if possible, we recommend reporting before the last week, but we get it. It's kind of like filing taxes. A lot of people wait till the last minute, and you're also running around doing other jobs in most cases as well. The bottom part of the fee worksheet is the certification statement by a plant person of appropriate nature. You're certifying that you have reviewed the information and that it is true and complete. So make sure that is the case. That there are penalties for willful or intentional submission of false or incomplete information. We do understand, with that said, in the cases PFAS, that in some cases you may not have accurate numbers. And some of you may recall Dwight Peavy from the EPA. He was of the ilk where he would say report something and make corrections after the fact. So if you think you have PFAS in your facility, we would recommend that you report basically generic numbers and then amend them, correct them after the fact when you get the correct information. But we would rather not take enforcement against you for not reporting the chemical at all, and then to have to take enforcement against you. So put in basically dummy numbers for PFAS if there's any chance that you believe that you have PFAS, based on the information that you have in conversations and letters and so on with your suppliers. Type in the first name of the person signing this, the last name, their title, and their email. And as Rebecca mentioned before, this is the email that she will contact companies, and the program will, if we have any questions or issues with your filing. Once you sign at this point, your entire submittal is locked, and it, at this point, cannot be changed. We can amend, or you can amend after the fact, but please double check your figures and information before you click on the error check index and sign this page. Next up is the signature screen. This year, there will be only one signature screen showing up, the first block that you see here, the signature. Again, this is a certification information that we saw previously. You'll click on the signature box. You'll click on the name and type in, or so-called sign your name as appropriate. We'll skip that because we're not doing planning this year. For reporting, the next step is submit. So, and this is where I sound like a broken record again. But as you're working on the system, on the EDP system, yes, it is a DEP system. No, we have not yet received it until you push the submit button. So if you've done everything and you're rushing out the door to go on vacation because this is due on July 1st, understandable, but you have not yet submitted this information to DEP. We do not want to take enforcement on you because you forgot to push one button. But if you didn't push this button, you are now late. So, or potentially late. So make sure you push the submit button. You've got to put it into the mailbox basically to send it to us. Once you press submit, before you press submit, you'll see a very small summary of what you're sending in to us, a list of the sheets of the pages that you're doing, and your name will be the first email confirmation that shows up here. You can also send it to somebody else, either at your company, if you want to do so, or if you're a consultant and you've done all of this work for your client, you can put in your client's email here. So they receive an email saying that this has been submitted as well. An important thing to note when it comes to the amend processing, where you have the ability to do an amend of a report, only the person who owns the report, the submittal, can make the amendment, not the person who edited it, not the signer, only the owner. So you need to keep track, whether it's the consultant or the person, the worker bee at the facility, remember who the owner is. Again, until you submit it, we have not received this information. And again, we don't have it, so we could have a fine for late fees. Remember, submit. We'll skip this. And I believe, here's the last bit on my screen. So remember again, and I've said this half dozen times at least, document. Especially with changes in staffing, know where your records are. We had an incident years ago when we walked in to do an inspection and we asked where the TURA plan was, and the person said, "What's a TURA plan?" And they were brand new at the facility. And we looked around the office, just scanning, not pulling things apart. And in a bookshelf, we saw literally a 3-ring binder that said TURA plan on it. Report only what you need to report on. If it's below threshold, don't be talking to us about a chemical that you don't need to report, with the caveat of PFAS. Be aware of contaminants in your raw materials, things like PFAS, things like lead. We have discovered that lead can be in non-lead EU certified materials. So make sure, if you're not sure, you contact your suppliers and ask for a updated SDS. Keep abreast of changes in the program. And Sandra, you asked a great question before. There are so many lists, so many matrices that we have for PFAS. The chemicals, PFAS chemicals, keep getting added to the list. The only way to be aware of this, is to be abreast of these changes, to keep in touch with TURA, OTA, and DEP, keep in touch with the EPA. I suspect PFAS chemicals are going to be added to the list for quite a number of years. And then additional chemicals get added as well. So keep an eye on SDSs. Occasionally, although I'm not aware of any lowering of reporting thresholds in the horizon, but that occasionally happens. And if this was a planning year, make sure to submit your TURA report and your TURA plan on time. For TURA planners, if this was a planning year, make sure you submit the certification on time as well. And then please, please, please make sure that you pay your invoice on time as well. And that's my piece.
Thank you, Walter. Okay, I will go ahead and start pulling up some of the questions that came up during your presentation. Let's see. So Sandra is the first one. I get a double Form Rs for TRI reportables on EDEP on a couple of filings. Any fixes for this bug? Meaning I file on TRI, but EDEP still asks for a Form R?
No, there is no fix to that bug. As you know, Sandra, some versions of TRI chemicals are different than our version. A great example is sulfuric acid. We care about it at all, and the feds only care about the aerosol version. So it's not quite as easy. You know, perhaps someday we'll fix that little glitch. But at the moment, if the system presents you with a state-only Form R, we would ask you to fill it out as well. Thank you.
Okay. Joan Shaughnessy asked, what do you use for prior year quantities on a state-only Form R or A? Is you did not have to report in the prior year. Oh, if you did not have to report in the prior year.
Good question. I don't know. We'll have to check and get back to you. Anybody have an answer for that with the program? So you have a new chemical that you didn't report last year or 2 years ago, and now you're reporting on it.
Walter, I think I've read it's 1.0.
Well, that would be for a production unit ratio. But for the pounds of chemicals used on the Form R matrix, I believe that's what the question was asking about. So we'll have to get back to you on that.
Say, and the state-only Form R in Section 8, Column A, is that? I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah,
I would say if you really don't know, you can leave it blank. It's not data that we really use. What's much more important to us is Column B, Section 8.
Right.
So, that's a good question. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. See, Brian Bunton, I would like to change my unit of product. I will recalculate last year's numbers based on this new UOP in order to get the production ratio. Can I do this? Looks like Lynn answered that live and said yes.
No, Joseph, actually.
Oh, no.
You cannot change the unit of product. You would have to create a brand new production unit.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't want to discourage people from changing their unit of product if they have a better way to calculate their use. But you're right. They do, right, Walter. They need to. Thank you. They need to create a new production unit. Thanks.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with creating a new production unit. There's no problem with that at all. We're not going to look at it in a bad way at all. We would prefer appropriate information, and we've discovered, as I mentioned, new people are coming on board with this program at facilities, and they're discovering things that were not up to their standard. So there's no problem changing production units or units of products.
Okay, thank you. Joseph Callahan asked, can you explain the technique code in Form S Section 4?
I answered his question.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Oh, you did see, I did see that. I'm sorry. Sandra Wyman asked, invoiced due date is on what MassDEP mails to the filer, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And Bernie, you asked what day, when the report is due by. The report again is due on or before July 1st of this summer.
Thank you, Walter.
Yep.
Thanks, Walter. So Sandra asked, are PFAS the only new chemicals for this cycle?
Rebecca, I think you skipped a question from Brian Bunton.
Yep, I actually spoke to Brian on the side. He's going to ask his question at the end.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. So Sandra asked, are PFAS the only new chemicals for this cycle?
Yes.
Okay. And Daryl said on TRI form R's, NA is used. And I think those are both people asking about the answering the question from earlier, because Sierra also said, I believe you can leave it blank.
Yeah.
Okay. And Brian, you were wondering if there's time at the end to field that question. Go ahead and unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we have a lot of zinc stearite and zinc oxide that's way over the threshold, and I see the comment in the listing that these are excluded from reporting for the compounds, and I'm just wondering if we basically just ignore those completely, or if I have to put them in some form.
Yeah, if you're concerned about reporting zinc compounds, is that your question?
Yeah. So I have zinc oxide and zinc stearate where the listing comment is they're excluded from reporting in zinc compounds. So I'm wondering.
That's correct.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah, these both zinc stearate and zinc oxide were delisted years ago. So you don't have to report them. You would have to report them to under TURA to the feds. Right. But if you have any other zinc compounds, you'd have to report them to DEP. But if they're the only ones you're concerned about, that's correct. You don't have to report them to under TURA.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Oh, just one point for DEP staffers. I mentioned briefly, but we'll post with the presentations our new phone numbers. As I mentioned, we no longer have our desk phone numbers. So we all have cell phones now. So we'll post those. If you're trying to call us at our old numbers, I'm not sure what happens, but we don't get the message.
Right. I'm just going to also throw out there, we do have the non-app form and the closure form. So if your facility is closing or no longer subject to TURA for some reason, you can either complete the non-app form if it's non-applicable for a particular chemical and you don't need to file the form, instead of just trying to file and then stopping when you get to the that second page, the Form S, I believe it's the cover sheet page. You can fill out the non-app form and send that over to us and just say, we aren't reporting for this year. If you're closing entirely, you can fill out a closure form saying, we will not be reporting going forward, or something has changed in our facility, and as such, we are no longer filing or subject to TURA. And that kind of gets us off, get you guys off of our list so that we stop trekking on you and tracking you if you are no longer open or you're not filing for that year. So if anyone has any other questions, if not, thank you all for attending.
One more thing. I'll send an email to everybody in the next day or two regarding the CE credits. Some kind of a quiz will come out. Respond to that email, please. And then within a week or two, you'll get your continuing ed credit for today's session, which is worth 6 TURA credits.
Sandra, the closing form and the non-app forms are on the mass.gov TURA DEP TURA page. I will make sure to include a link when we send those out for you guys after the presentation. And these, the PowerPoints and the overall recording should be posted hopefully by the end of the week. And I'll send out some email links for folks as well. Anything else? If not, I'm going to go ahead and end that recording.